the New Jerusalem, the bride of the Lamb. One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of 7 last plagues came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb." And he carried me away in the Spirit to a mountain great and high, and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of the heavens from God. It shone with the glory of God, and its brilliance was like that of a very precious jewel, like a jasper, clear as crystal. It had a great high wall with 12 gates, and with 12 angels at the gates. On the gates were written the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. There were 3 gates on the east, 3 on the north, 3 on the south, and 3 on the west. The wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. The angel who talked with me had a measuring rod of gold to measure the city, its gates, and its walls. The city was laid out like a square, as long as it was wide. He measured the city with the rod and found it to be 12,000 stadia in length, and as wide and high as it is long. The angel measured the wall using human measurement, and it was 144 cubits thick. The wall was made of jasper, and the city of pure gold, as pure as glass. The foundations of the city walls were decorated with every kind of precious stone. The first foundation was jasper, the second was sapphire, the third agate, the fourth emerald, the fifth onyx, the 6th ruby, the 7th chrysolite, the 8th beryl, the 9th topaz, and the 10th turquoise, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th amethyst. The 12 gates were 12 pearls, each gate made of a single pearl. The great street of the city was of gold, as pure as transparent glass. I did not see a temple in the city, because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives its light, and the Lamb is its lamp. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendor into it. On no day will its gates ever be shut, for there will be no night there. The glory and honor of the nations will be brought into it. Nothing impure will ever enter it, nor will anyone who does what is shameful or deceitful, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. Amen.
There is a famous book by Charles Dickens called A Tale of Two Cities. I wonder if anyone here has ever read it. It starts with some very famous words. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. Perhaps you've heard some of those words before. And the story is of two cities, London and Paris, at the time of the French Revolution and the terror of the guillotine. And the story ends with the hero, a not very good man actually, but the hero anyway, a man called Sidney Carton, who swaps places with another man who's innocently being threatened with death, Charles Darnay, and goes and dies in his place. I can't help when I think of this story of thinking of Jesus and how he gave his life for you and for me. A Tale of Two Cities. And because Sidney Carlton swaps places with Charles Darnay is able to escape the terrors of revolutionary Paris for the safety and the security of London. And the story ends with some quite famous words as well, and looks forward to a future time and a future king. He says, I see a beautiful city and a brilliant people rising from this abyss. I see the lives for which I lay down my life, peaceful, useful, prosperous, and happy. I see that I hold a sanctuary in their hearts and in the hearts of their descendants, generations hence. It is a far, far better thing that I do than I have ever done. It is a far, far better rest that I go to than I have ever known. Can you see parallels here with the Christian story? As I can, whenever I think of this book and the way it starts and its story and how it ends, it seems to be pointing to the cross, where the difference is that at the cross, a perfect man, Jesus Christ, died for bad people like you and I. Whereas in A Tale of Two Cities, it's a not very good man who dies for a better man. With Jesus, it's the opposite way around. The perfect, better one dies for the sinful like you and for me. Well, the Bible is also a tale of two cities. And nowhere is this contrast greater than in the book of Revelation, where in the last few chapters you have that contrast between the destruction of Babylon and the construction of a new Jerusalem. There are two cities here, and we are being invited out of one and into another, out of the realm of evil and the probability of destruction, and into the realm of God and of goodness and the possibility of eternal life. The destruction of Babylon is in Revelation chapters 17 and 18. The construction of the New Jerusalem, chapters 21 and 22. And you and I can leave the one city spiritually for another because of Jesus Christ. This is the good news. This is the gospel. Okay, tonight I want us to look a little closer at what the Bible says about our eternal home in the New Jerusalem. Revelation 21, 9 to 27. And as we look at this passage, John is shown or notices three special things about the home that God is preparing for his people in eternity. The first is its glory. In verses 9 to 11. It is a glorious place. It shines with the glory and the goodness and the holiness of God. If I were to ask you tonight, what is the biggest city in the world right now? What would you say? Who thinks they could tell us the biggest city in the world right now? Any guesses?
India?
Beijing. It's not Beijing.
New Delhi?
It's not New Delhi or Mumbai. It's not Mexico City. The largest city in the world in the latest count, 2019, was actually Tokyo, with 30 million people living in it. I find that almost hard to conceive, 30 million people in one city. New York is second, Mexico and Sao Paulo, Los Angeles, Shanghai, Mumbai, Seoul, Osaka, and Greater London is number 10 on the list, with 14 million people, because it's now spread out so far, and lots of other little villages and towns have kind of been incorporated into it. 30 million people in one city, and the boast of Tokyo is that it is one of the cleanest and safest and nicest and most modern cities in the world. I don't know, I haven't been there, maybe I'd like to visit sometime. But when you think of somewhere like Tokyo today being so large and holding 30 million people, it is nothing compared to the New Jerusalem. The New Jerusalem, if you take the scriptures here, is 1,500 miles square, because it's a whole new planet, a whole new situation. And it is so amazing that maybe when we read about it, we find it difficult to conceive and grasp. But then if you went back 2,000 years to the Apostle John, the largest city in his time was Rome. It had, estimates suggest, between 500,000 and 1 million people in it. And I guess John would not have been able to conceive very easily of 30 million skyscrapers and underground trains and cars and internet and all of these things in just 2,000 years. So when we look at this New Jerusalem and it seems so far beyond our imagination, just pause for a moment and think that nothing is impossible to God. And what we can conceive of now is nothing to what God has prepared for us. In 1 Corinthians chapter 1, towards the end of the chapter, the Apostle Paul writes this: "Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, neither has the heart of man conceived what God has prepared for those that love him. But he has revealed it to us by his Spirit, that there is this amazing place that God is getting ready for you and for me, which is so far beyond our complete imagination that even the greatest of what we can see on the world right now is nothing compared to that city that God is preparing for his people to live in. If I were to ask you, what is the tallest building in the world right now? Anybody know? It's not the Taj Mahal. That's a beautiful building, but it's not that large. The tallest building in the world right now is the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, but Saudi Arabia wants to beat it. So they're building the Jeddah Tower, which they hope will be complete in 2022, and it will be 1 kilometer high. Does anybody fancy going up in the lift?
Oh, yes.
I can almost not imagine. I've been up mountains which are smaller than that, and been looking down on clouds and cars like ants. And this building is going to be 1 kilometer high. I don't know, are they going to breathe up there? Let alone whether they would dare look out the window if there's a viewing platform. But you know, that's nothing compared to what we've been told here about the New Jerusalem. And I want to give you these things as a comparison, but also to say, if you told John the Apostle 2,000 years ago about the Burj Khalifa or the Jeddah Tower, he wouldn't have been able to conceive it, would he? You know, we find it difficult. And when the Bible tells us about this New Jerusalem, don't write it off. Some people have tried to write it off purely as symbolic. And when you take this passage and you just make it symbolic, you end up tying yourself into all kind of knots and difficulties about these 12 different precious stones and what their meanings could be. Why not simply take it for now as it's written, that there's this amazing, beautiful, wonderful, glorious place that God is preparing for believers to live in forever, and keep it as simple as that. And if you take that to heart, that'll do you good. That'll do you good. Don't get too caught up in the, trying to find analogies and allegories and all of those things. Take it at its simplest and take its message. there's a place filled with the glory of God that is going to be created for you and for I. And this New Jerusalem that is described here is beyond our full understanding. One of the things that the Bible tells us is in verse 9 that the Apostle John is given a tour guide. I don't know if you've ever been on holiday somewhere and you've got to a big city. You've never been there before, maybe been on a bus trip from your hotel or your ship or whatever you've been on, and they have a tour guide, don't they? So that you don't miss out the important places. If you go on your own, you get lost, or you don't see everything that you need to see. And so the Apostle John here, he's been given a tour guide, an angelic guide who's going to show him the bride of Christ. Because the city isn't the building, it's the people. And he's not going to miss anything that matters. And so what we have here are the details that matter to encourage us in our faith. It's also a holy city. That's how it's described in verse 10. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. It is also something that is being given John in a vision. So whether in the end it will be literally like this, I don't know. It may well be symbolic, but the best way to grasp it right now is to take it as literal and as simple as you can. Okay, the key thing is in verse 11, where the Bible tells us it shone with the glory of God. That word glory is a strong and powerful word in the Bible. In the Old Testament, one of the words used for the glory of God was Shekinah. Have you heard that word? The Shekinah glory of God dwelt in the Holy of Holies. It was the visible presence of God among his people. And what we're being told here is that we're going to be with God forever. That heaven and earth are united. That it's like a heaven on earth and an earth in heaven, and the presence of God is there, and it shines with the presence of our God. Even so much that it won't need electric light or gas light or any other sort of light. The presence of God dwells among his people forever. This is the choice we've been given here, darkness or light. Babylon or New Jerusalem. Without God or with God. Where are you going to spend eternity? We used to sing a song when I was a little child. I've got a home in glory land that outshines the sun. Anybody know it? Oh, a few of you, putting your hands up. 4 or 5. I've got a home in glory land that outshines, in the glory, in that presence of God. It's a wonderful thing to be looking forward to. So the first thing that John notices is the glory. The second thing he notices is its beauty. And I'm going to deal with this in a kind of summary rather than go into details. But again, the angel guide is showing John the key details of the city. And he notes certain things about it. First of all, the jewels in the walls. And we need to be careful with this because the identification of the jewels and the translation is not certain. So when you read different Bibles, if you compare one Bible with another, it mentions different jewels because the translators are not exactly sure what the words are. So it's the message that is a beautiful place. It's precious. It's shining. It's somewhere that you would want to be. And the idea is of it being crystal clear and bright with colours through glowing with the glory of God. My guess is that, again, if you go back to the Apostle John's time, they wouldn't have known very much about glass. They wouldn't have had glass windows. And trying to describe that to somebody who's never understood about these things. So we're told here that this city is kind of translucent. You can see through it. It shines all the way through. We are told that there are pearly gates. This is where the pearly gates come from. Now, there's 12 gates made of pearls. And you get all sorts of tales, don't you? about the Pearly Gates. Can I share with you, just for fun, one of my favourites? Okay? Here we go. David arrives at the Pearly Gates, carrying a heavy burden, and he decides to confess his sins. He says to the angel at the gate, or to the man at the gate, "Do you know, just before the war, I played on the wing for Wales against England. We were losing by 2 points with just a minute to go. The ball came out to me on the right wing. I sidestepped their wing and ran for the line, and as I crossed, I was tackled by their centre, grounded the ball in touch. The crowd thought I'd scored the winning try. The ref didn't see I was actually out of bounds. So I jumped up in the air as if I'd scored the try. The referee awarded the winning try to Wales, and we were given the win even though the try had never been scored. I've kept the secret to this day. I've been very dishonest. I know I need to confess my sin before you let me into heaven." "Well, come into heaven anyway," said the man at the gate. "Make yourself comfortable, David." "But St. Peter," said David, "I don't deserve this." "Shh, I'm not St. Peter. He's on holidays. I'm St. David. Come on in. You're very welcome." Just a bit of fun, okay? Listen, it's not St. David or St. Peter who's on the door. The Bible tells us it's angels. And we don't get in because of who we know or what we know or even what we've done. The only way that you enter into the city is by having faith in Jesus Christ as your personal Saviour and Lord. We get in because of him, not because of us or of anyone else. We don't get there because of our parents. We don't get there because of our church. You won't get to heaven because you've got a wonderful pastor. You won't get to heaven because you've got a terrible pastor. You only get to heaven if you've got faith in Jesus Christ. Does that make sense? So, the Pearly Gates and the Welsh jokes. But I just want to remind us that we need to have asked Jesus to forgive us so that we can enter into this beautiful, wonderful place. A place where the foundations of the city are made of brilliant gems. And the 12 tribes are linked with the Pearly Gates, the 12 apostles, with the foundation base. And the Bible is saying here the Old Testament and the New Testament are in harmony. We are dependent on the love and mercy and grace of God, not upon our good works. The form of this city from the scriptures seems to be like a cube, though some people think it might be a pyramid. It is beyond our full understanding. And yet it is this shining picture of a beautiful, awesome place which is glowing with the presence of God. Even the streets are made of gold. Can I tell you another quick story, just for fun? I know we've been a little bit deep, so I'm going to go off on one of my little tangents and tell you about the man who was very rich, and he prayed to God. And he said, "God, can I take my wealth to heaven?" And the Lord gave him a vision that he was walking into heaven with a bag full of his wealth of gold bars. And when he gets to the gate, the angel says, "You can't come in with anything from the earth." He says, "The Lord's given me permission." "Oh, that's interesting," said the angel. "Can I have a look?" So he unzips the bag and he shows the angel at the gate his gold bars. And the angel goes, cobblestones. Material things are not as important as spiritual things. If you want to be in this city, this New Jerusalem, make sure your heart and your life is right with God. Will you be there? Will you be there? I'm going to be there. Not because I'm good, not because of what I do, but simply because I put my trust in Jesus Christ. The third thing that John notices, along with the glory and the beauty of this city, is its purity. And in verses 22 to 27, we see some exclusions and some inclusions. First of all, we're told there's no temple there. You don't need a temple to worship God when God is actually present in and among his people. It is a living temple. We are going to be a living temple. God is going to be in us and through us, as well as around us. There's no need of lights there, because the glory of God will shine. Imagine Jesus when he was transfigured. And we're going to be like him in a new and glorified body. It seems so far outside our normal way of looking at life. And yet this is what the Bible is telling us. The old hymn, Love Divine, changed from glory into glory. We are going to be like him in his glorified state, because the presence of God will be in us and through us. We will shine. What does Paul say? Like stars in the universe. All these different verses coming together, all of the jigsaw pieces falling into place. All these other verses of the Bible starting to make sense. There will be no barriers there. The gates are open because there is no evil to threaten. Actually, the angels here are not guards, but guides. If it's going to be that big, I'm going to need somebody to show me around. They're not guards, there's no evil. They're there for our benefit. There are no impurities. And I can imagine the people in John's time reading this. If you went to a big city like Rome, the first thing you would notice was the smell. And then the smog. And I don't know if you've ever been up to London and you've got off the train in maybe Paddington, and the air just feels so much heavier because of the smog in the city. But there's no impurities here, is what we're being told. Neither moral or physical. It is a perfect place. And no one false. The parable of the wheat and the weeds, the day of judgment has taken place long before this new Jerusalem comes. And yet it is a warning to anybody who thinks that they can be half-hearted or cowardly or Christian who denies Christ. Do you see what it says here? No one who does what is shameful or deceitful, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. We will look into the city a little bit more next week in chapter 22. But for now, let me just encourage you with the thought of the glory and the beauty and the purity of this eternal home that God is creating for you and for me who trust in Jesus Christ. The good news is that we have eternal life in this situation through Jesus our Lord. Okay, nothing impure, only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. Have you heard of cryonics? You heard of cryonics? It's where some people freeze their bodies and they hope of being kind of brought back to life sometime in the future. It's quite fascinating that people want to live forever, even if they don't believe in Jesus. And I went on the cryonics website for fun. Imagine a world free of disease, death, and aging. At the Cryonics Institute, we believe that day is inevitably coming, and cryonics is presently our best chance of getting there. Our mission is to extend human lifespans by preserving the body using existing cryogenic technologies with the goal of revival by future science. Well, will it work? Research makes a powerful case for cryonics. Get the facts and decide for yourself. 250 people have already had their body or their head frozen. 1,500 have already signed up to have it done to them when they die. It's more hype than hope. 2 companies have already failed, and the bodies that had been frozen had to be disposed of in some other way, by burial or by cremation. Cryonics is hype. Instead, we have something which we can be sure of. With cryonics, they haven't got even one example yet of even an animal that has died, been frozen, and many years later been brought back to life. But we have someone called Jesus Christ, who was dead, who was buried, who was in the grave for 3 days, who rose from the dead, and who says, this is eternal life. Follow me. What are you going to put your trust in? Science or Jesus? Cryonics or Christ? There's only one that I believe will be successful, and that's Jesus, and he's already shown us. Shown us the way. Gone ahead. We have a living Saviour, and it makes the difference. We know it works because he's alive. If you're watching this online, we invite you to ask questions about anything that you've heard. Get in contact with us at faith@gilgal.co.uk. In a moment, we're going to be giving the opportunity for questions here in the service this evening. But let me just bring it all together with this question. I always want to end my messages with this thought. So what if these things are true? If God has created a new Jerusalem for us in the future, a place of glory and beauty and purity, so what? Well, the so what is a choice. There are actually 2 places. There's a heaven or a hell. A new Jerusalem or a destroyed Babylon. The Bible is a tale of 2 cities. Which one are you going to spend eternity in? Let's pause for a moment in prayer. Let's pray. Father, thank you for the revelation that you gave to John. Help us, Lord, even though it is so far beyond our complete understanding, to grasp what we can and to let these truths shape our lives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.